Welcome to The Liberation Effect with me, your host, Helen Villas. This episode was one that was originally released for our paid subscribers under the name The Expert Series. It's now called Hub Bites. Enjoy the episode and, as ever, take care. Bye. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of The Expert Series. I am thrilled to invite today Joe and Kat, who are collectively known as the Fat Counsellors, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to have you here. I originally met you guys when I did your course on fatphobia, and well, why don't I actually just hand straight over to you and ask you to introduce yourselves and how you're doing this work, how you know each other. And Kat, could I start with you? Is that okay?
Yes, but it's probably easier to start with Joe.
Okay, Joe.
That's all right.
No, fair enough. Joe, straight to you then.
It is. I'm the beginning of the story, so we'll start with me. Yeah, so I'll introduce myself and then lead on to how Kat and I met, and then I'll hand over to Kat. So sure. I am a psychotherapist, supervisor and trainer in North Bristol, and I work a lot with body acceptance, fat acceptance, as you will hear, but predominantly my work previously to this has been with teenagers. So I still do a lot of work with young people. And of course, the body work is very prevalent and present with young people. And more recently, I've been doing a lot more work around ADHD and menopause. So I did my counselling training 15 years ago, and my dissertation was about weight stigma in the counselling room. And this is because of my own experience. I'm a fat person, and we use this word, as you know, we're collectively known as fat counsellors, and we'll tell you a bit more about why we use this word. And I had quite a bad experience in therapy, being stigmatised by a counsellor, and I'd had a very good experience as well. So I used it as a dissertation topic, and yeah, it was great. And actually, I'm so glad I did it. And I then wrote an article for Therapy Stay, the BACP magazine that goes out to all the therapists in the UK who are registered with them. And it was sort of an abridged version of my dissertation. And Kat came across it during her training. And she will tell you about that. But that has led us to meet each other and work together, and that's where we are today. But I will hand over to Kat to tell you that part of the story.
Amazing, thank you, Joe. Kat, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Kat Chappell. I'm a counsellor. I'm a supervisor. I'm a trainer also. And I was training about 10 years ago. Unbeknownst to me, I sort of had fluctuating weight for my entire life, but was always known as fat. I really had a lot of internalised anti-fat bias and was trying to work through this through therapy, but didn't have quite the right counsellor. But reading Joe's article at the time as a trainee kind of gave me a few light bulbs as to maybe my size wasn't actually a problem. Maybe it was more a societal thing. And that sort of led me to sort of educate myself and learn about anti-fat bias and that fat phobia and why it is how it is. And then I noticed and, kept in contact with Joe after reading the article that there were quite a lot of people in the therapy community who were still quite biased around fat people and were offering solutions, which I thought were not the best. So we decided to join together. We got in contact. We were like, we need to do training. And we decided to do training together for therapists. But what we realised is this is universal. And so now we have training which is in two parts. The first one is for everyone. Really just learning about where this comes from, how to combat it, all those things. And now then we have a second part after we've done the first for therapists who want to learn how to be the right kind of therapist for people in all types of bodies and not to perpetuate diet culture and other harmful things. And so, so we've been doing that a few years now, and it's been running for a while, and it's incredibly rewarding work, which, we've really both enjoyed.
Do you know, and I did your course. Which course did I do then? Because it seems to have changed a bit since I did it.
It has. Yeah. So we You came on our second cohort, if I remember that correctly. And
really?
So, yeah. And
early adopter.
yeah, exactly. We were just doing it for therapists to start with, because we knew that therapists had this bias because they live in a Western culture too, and it's an accepted fact. It goes really unchallenged. We're not talking about it in our training. We all have a body, but we're not talking about that hierarchy of bodies, and it's really interesting. So that's how we set out. We're both therapists. Let's try and talk to therapists to challenge this unconscious bias. But as we started, so you came to that one, but of course there's a very personal element to it, because people are coming along and realizing that they have body issues, because we live in, anyone lives in a Western culture, particularly those in female bodies, will have some body insecurities. It's baked into us from such a young age. And so what we realized is there was so much personal work going on that actually we needed 2 courses, and therefore we could and do the sort of therapist kind of work in a separate course, and therefore it meant we could open out the first course to anyone. Don't need to be a therapist. It's personal development work, and we talk about the history, and it's a lot of teaching.
It was an absolutely transformative course for me when I did it, because it was so, I suppose, exposing is the word, around my biases, my own subjectivity, my internal feelings of myself, but also what my external judgments were of people as well. And what was really interesting for me is after I came off your course, and I'd learned so much, and I was so blown away by all these amazing kind of reframing, understanding the racism of things, just really understanding lots of different aspects of it, that I then posted on social media a list of kind of facts that I had learnt. And the response I got was, I mean, you guys, because I tagged you both, obviously, saw exactly what the response was, and the pushback I got against some of the things that were really very rooted in science and evidence and fact, and there really wasn't no space to challenge them, but people did, and they really were not willing to accept things like the idea that there is no health condition that is caused by being fat, and that concept actually really pissed people off.
Well, it really polarizes. You either get people kind of going, "Oh my goodness, I've been thinking about this," or "I've been wondering about this," or "This is what I need," or people are just like, "Absolutely no." The vitriol is like high. It's just and anger. There's so anger and hostility about it. Not just like, "Oh, I don't agree with this." It's vicious, actually. People can be quite vicious about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kat, what did you see around that? What do you notice?
Well, I think the first thing is the word fat is very divisive. And, I've come to accept it as what we would call a neutral descriptor, like you'd say someone's tall. But I know that there is a teenage me that cringes every time I use that word, because it was an insult, and still is to a lot of people. And also, regardless of your body size, if you don't want to use that word, don't. That's fine. But, it's that thing we go, "Oh, don't say you're fat, you're beautiful." And it's like, I am both. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So,
yes, because the negative connotation in that, like, reassurance is just so strong, isn't it? Sorry, I interrupted a bit.
And such erasure of who someone is. If someone says, you're not tall, that's just like a strange thing to say when someone says, like, "No, well, I am."
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a term that dance around. So we have curvy and bigger boned, and it's always those things of like, we don't want to say it. It's very British in the way we don't say somebody died, they passed away. They're not fat, they're like bigger boned, curvy, all of those sorts of things. So there's that aspect of it. It's the aesthetics. It's that is seen to be bad, but it's also all those associations of apparently greediness, laziness, all those tropes which aren't true. But also, we are sold this idea that if you are thin, you are healthy. If you pray to the church of good health through exercise and whatever food fad, whatever good, clean, bad eating, whatever it is, that you will be granted everlasting health. And I wish that was true, but it's not. If you're in a body with cells, things will happen to it. And the biggest predeterminant of health you could ever get is privilege in society, money and time. That if you're actually freed from the stresses and strains of life, have access to food and healthcare and dignity, then your health is going to be better overall. The rest of it is a lottery, and a lot of it, including your weight, is your genetic destiny, essentially.
That's fascinating. You said a word that I was a bit surprised by, which was dignity being part of that privilege. Could you expand on that a little bit?
So, as a fat person, I have to think about seating. And I can now, thanks to the internet, try and find out if there's places I can fit in. But sometimes I can't. And sometimes I'm just there, kind of half perch, one butt cheek on a chair, you know? And before it used to be humiliating. Now I just get angry. And now I'm able to go, I want a different chair. But also people feel they're able to talk to you. They've decided why your body is like that. I was accosted by a woman in the street the other day. And I was annoyed because I'd hurt my ankle. And I didn't want to be limping because I was like, I don't want people to think I'm limping because I'm fat. Anyway, she went, "Oh, you're doing so well." And I knew that. I've seen that before.
Oh, no.
Every time I'm out on my bike and I'm walking, "Oh, look at you moving." And it's like, yes, that happens. Leave me alone. And I was like, "Oh, yeah." And she went, "No, I'm not meaning to be rude, but have you gone on a diet?" And I just
No.
said, yeah.
No.
Wait, what? This is some random stranger?
Oh, yes.
I think she
Accosted
lives
you?
down my road, and I think she sees me walk up and down for the school run, because I've seen her before. She's like, "Oh, you're so good." She will see that, and I thought she was referring to my parenting, but I think it was because I'm a fat person who deems to go outside and walk about, moving.
Oh
So,
my goodness me.
And
This
the
isn't
thing is,
uncommon.
she
It
was trying to be
isn't
nice.
uncommon.
No, she was trying to be nice, and actually, it was just a reflex, and I think it's because of the training me and Joe I've done. I just said, "I don't want to discuss my body, thank you." And I just kept going.
Good work.
And luckily, because we were
done.
going opposite directions, and she was a lot older than me, I was quick at walking. I could run away from her quick. But but I've had that, people going, "Oh, look at you on a bike. Oh, so good." And it's like, yeah, I've got 2 legs. They work. It's fine. It's just, again, because this lifestyle sort of assumption that, if you exercise, you're thin. And it's like, well, no, it's not about that.
You have another good story about being on your bike, and you had 2 opposing prejudicial comments. Do you know which one I'm referring to? The one when someone's being rude and then someone stops to defend you.
Yes.
Do you want to tell this story?
Yeah.
Go on.
It's classic.
Some boys harass me for being fat, call me a fat cow, whatever. I don't care. So, but then this man intervenes, and then he's like getting really angry, and he's trying to defend me on my behalf. I'm like, okay. And he was like, "Look, it's because of people like you that women like her." And I'm like what? Don't get on their bikes. And I'm like what? Like intelligent and beautiful? No, you mean fat. You are going to stop the fatty being on the bike, and she'll never reach her destiny of being thin. I haven't reached it still. It's been, 15 years now. It's just, it's just my genetic destiny.
So the assumption is that you're on the bike to get thin, that you're not just there because you enjoy it or because it's just who you are or whatever. It's that you must want to. And there is the thing, right? That we all assume that everybody wants to be thin.
Yeah, every fat person is trying to get thin.
Right.
And that happens, and I mean, talking about therapists, that unconscious bias is sewn in. And that's what happened to me. I happened to mention to a counsellor that I'd gone about work stuff, and I happened to mention that I'd gone to the gym in my lunch break because it was like there and part of the package. And her next question was, "And what about your weight?" And I was like, nothing. I mean, didn't know what to say. It's a few years ago now. I wouldn't know what to say now. But that's the kind of thing, like that unconscious bias that there's just, and she could, even when I was like, "We're not talking about my weight." And she's like, "Yeah, but it would be useful to talk about how that's affecting you. And like, you're obviously going to the gym to but she just couldn't see it. So, I mean, that's a great example of that unconscious bias. But I think also what it links into, as Kat was talking there, is this, you get the, Kat will have good phrases for this. You get the people who are overtly like just fucking awful, right, to you, mean, unkind, discriminatory, prejudiced, conscious. They know what they're doing. And then you get the concerned trolls who think they're being really helpful. Come on, well done.
Joe.
All the time.
Well, I could share my own story on that, which is The last time we met, I was a lot fatter than I am now. I've lost a lot of weight. And back in the day with my social media, someone commented something about me being fat and clearly having an eating disorder, and I shouldn't be offering advice because if I can't resolve my own eating issues, then who am I to be sitting there preaching about mental health? First of all, not preaching, but okay. And my response then was, my waistline has nothing to do with my brain size. You know, like my intelligence is not related to what my waist size is. And this person couldn't grasp it. And people jumped on defending them, saying that clearly there was an issue and clearly there were... And in the end, it was just like, you're so... You really only could take advice from someone who's in a thin body, or not advice even, but information, because I don't give advice. I share information.
Yeah. It's that validity, isn't it? Or legitimacy in someone who's in a bigger body. It's just written off.
Yeah. Like somehow being bigger is like you're stupid. There's this dumbness to you, which is a horrible word to use to describe it. But there's such a prejudice around that.
And we could talk a bit about the roots of that, which is something
that would be
talk
amazing.
about on our course. Kat, do you want to kind of explain a bit about the roots of it?
Yeah. No, essentially, I mean, a lot of it goes back to colonial times. I won't say colonial times, essentially slavery, when white Europeans went over
let's
to
not
African
sanitize
countries.
it like slavery, fair enough.
And stole human beings and decided we will use these people for free labour because it's good for profit, and dehumanise these people. So obviously you're aware of the legacy of slavery and what that did and the cruelty of it. But the thing is once then you have, because European people have brought black people over to Europe, there's a habitation, there's people there, and they need to justify racism because race wasn't a thing. People in Africa aren't going, I'm black, they're just, I'm me, I'm a human. But you have to kind of make up a sort of justification as to why you're enslaving people. So it'd be around skin colour, and then all the tropes of the thing around laziness and all the horrible stuff that goes with racism. Disgusting. It's not true. They used to call it a science, along with eugenics. It's not a science. So as people begin to have children, you get lots of people of mixed heritage. You can't always tell who is a slave and who is going to be free. So we're going on body size. And naturally, a lot of the time, there is more fat on black people's bodies. That's the way that they're built. That is a good thing. So when you're talking about this Puritan culture coming over from Europe going, oh, we moderate and we're very thin, so we're better. So then this must be worse. These are the things that we can identify to say that you're less than and we can treat you badly. And it's still here. It's still happening. Yeah, so those are the roots of it. It's rooted in racism. It's rooted in power. And how do we have a pecking order to say who deserves and who does not? And that happens in the NHS now. That's why things are gatekept via weight.
Yes, because that is what happens, isn't it? There's a weaponisation of thinness and fatness.
The link is very... There are loads of great books out there, but Dr. Sabrina Strings writes Fearing the Black Body, which writes about what Kat's just described. And there are other books which we can link, Helen, for people.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. I was just writing that down furiously. So I was like, keep it out. Yeah, go on, tell me.
But at a similar time, there's a man in Belgium who decides to create a table, just a part of his work to look at populations, just to measure nothing about health, but he decides to develop a formula which is to do with weight and height. Might sound familiar. And it was just based on Northern European men. I think they were just French and Scottish. I think it's really random, isn't it? French or Scottish. But he develops this bell curve basically, and in the years that followed this, he never intended it, but it's still in his lifetime. This is adopted by insurance companies in America, who are looking for ways to, make money, but also again to separate people. And the people who, so they use this formula, but they create their own parameters of it. And of course, let's not forget, it's just based on white European men, Northern European men. And so the BMI is created, but all different insurance companies are using different ones. And eventually somebody comes along to standardize it. But it's become so it's not based on health. It was never based on health, but it's become so morphed into something else anyway. And of course, you've got insurance companies going, right, well, we can charge more to guess who, Black people, women, for insurance purposes, if your weight is here. And the medical, it starts in America, the medical community kind of go, hey, we could make more money here too. And it's a whole industry in the fitness industry. This all sort of like 70s and 80s. And the World Health Organization designates it as a disease and changes the parameters during the 90s. It just becomes made up. But it becomes so accepted fact because it made money. And so people, and the people that sponsor the research are weight loss surgeons, diet industries, pharmaceuticals. You only need to look. They're all sponsored by, it's totally biased research. I read a really interesting article the other day. It's about another book by Virginia Soul-Smith, who writes about this. Very, very interesting, the history of how that developed in America, and then we've just adopted it.
That's amazing, isn't it? It's really interesting. I remember learning that on the course and being like, oh my God. Because do you remember when the Nintendo Wii came out? This a very long time. And they had a Wii Fit board. I've still got one. And there was this huge thing, because it was around the time that Facebook had launched. And there was this huge thing about athletes who are, of course, heavy because they're very muscular, being determined by this Wii Fit board as obese. And actually it was that they were just really muscly, and it was based on BMI. And I remember that being a bit of a moment, but it's used, to shame you. Your BMI, certainly medically, I find, your BMI should be this thing, and if it's not, then you're not healthy. And
the thing is, Helen, if it's used in hospitals and doctors are really revered, and I mean, there's some good reason for that. They're very clever, and they keep people alive. But it means everyone goes, well, they know, so they're right, and that filters into the rest of society. And so in families, and if we're thinking about the work that we all do as therapists, it becomes like it's an accepted fact. It's such an easy shortcut, isn't it, to blame and scapegoat and gaslight somebody about their awfulness if they're in a fat body. It's easy.
Right, because let's go there then, because let's talk about the shaming aspect and how this can be weaponized in toxic family systems, or just even people doing it without even realizing maybe how negative it is. And I wonder if you could maybe if you could tell us some examples of ways in which this might show up in those family systems, how it's weaponized, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, just to say that their weight is wrong, regardless of it, and just go, oh, but, I'm just concerned about your health, or I'm just concerned you won't get a partner. And it's normally to women about not getting a husband because your value is apparently in whether you have a man with you or not. But again, it's also because we're thinking about people who like to put on a good front, what is seen as acceptable, the old, patriarchal thing of wife and kids and, shiny thing. Part of it is looking thin, this is very white supremacist, isn't it? It's like white skin, thin body, these sorts of things. So like, I need you to fit in. I need you to look like this.
Well, when you think of narcissism, that extension of and mothers are hugely judged for their children. Full stop.
Yeah.
So sorry, I've interrupted, but yeah, if you just think of it in that context, it's
well, it's that thing of, if you have a fat child, they'll look at the mum, because who knows if they've got a dad or not, or another mum. It's just like, what's she feeding him? Well, this kid isn't running around. It's like, maybe they're just a kid. Maybe again. Yes. And again, you look at families, I've talked a lot about genetic destiny. You can see a body shape in families. And that's what will be always is you'll see a parent who is shamed for their body, externally and within the family. And then they'll see that happening to their child, panic, and want to stop that. Just go, I don't want this for you. But then again, it's through shaming and starvation. I mean, that's the other thing as well, is, on a larger scale, but even within families, if you keep someone on a diet consistently, they are too hungry to think properly about whether or not this is a good idea, and whether or not they've got enough energy to challenge any of this.
It's a massive distraction.
I mean, that becomes torture. That becomes a torture technique. That if a child is constantly being starved, they don't know whether to. So then they're easier to manipulate and control. And
absolutely.
Oh, that becomes very dark very quickly.
From out and out, like locking a cupboard and saying you're not allowed, through to that sort of more covert thing, going, you're going to have all of that today. Yeah, you're going to. That's quite a big portion there, isn't it? You're going to have all of that. Yeah.
I mean, family meal times, one of the things we do on our course is look at scenarios and the different generational, the comments, the mixed messages. They're like, oh, eat up, and like, oh, you've got a lot on your plate there. And, Granny in the corner, I won't have that. And Grandad, oh, that's naughty, I had an extra bit. The number of and I mean, we do that scenario and everyone can relate to it. It's actually across cultures. I mean, we are working in a Western middle class. Generally, those are the people. But we've had people who've been brought up in other cultures, in other countries, not just Western. It's prevalent.
I mean, I remember from my own childhood, like definitely having those mixed messages of eat everything, but also, oh my gosh, do you actually need that? And not really understanding why the grown-ups were allowed to not eat things, but I was being forced to eat things, and being taught to ignore my body and my impulses. But also, one of the biggest narratives I heard was around waste and the starving children in Ethiopia. Oh my God. And I remember once, well, shall I just pack? I don't know how I even dared to say it, but I said, shall I just put my food in the post for them? Because what difference will it make if I eat it? And there's a reason I was scapegoated, I'm sure. But those kind of narratives that we assume are somewhat, I mean, people laugh about them, Joe, but then they're just carried on, right?
But it's very complex, all of this, because we are, I'm slightly older than you two, but we're from a generation who were brought up with people coming out of the war, whose parents had rations. We've had people on our courses whose fathers were in war camps, and so, the legacy that gets rolled out, it's really important to look back at generations and where people were and what they've been taught. But this idea about waste comes from a really good place. It's a really good place, but it is weaponized, of course.
Yes.
And that's the problem. And obviously you get people who very deliberately in families, being very unkind or abusive about bodies, and you get people who are very well-meaning, because it's such an accepted fact that it is bad for you, and you need to eat to be healthy, and you will get eternal health. People believe that absolutely wholeheartedly, and so people mean well often. Very confusing.
If I don't know if it matters if people mean well, does it? Because the damage is the thing that's being done.
Yes, I think there's a thing is with adults, they can go, oh, it's what they know. But then I think it's important to then notice what is happening with your child or your family, and then maybe think about how that might be affecting them, or what they want to do. Like, is it distressing for them, to be made to finish all of this? I remember I was brought up by a rationing parent, and I really struggled to not finish a plate. And I remember the best advice I had is he said, it either goes in you or the bin. Are you a bin? You need to stop treating yourself as a bin.
That's amazing. Oh my God, that is amazing. Because my grandmother was in occupied Jersey during the war, Second World War, and then the weaponization of food became about keeping her happy. So we had to eat to keep her happy. But then it was, but you're not allowed seconds. But you, it was so confusing.
It's so complex.
Yeah. And the whole generational thing, I remember must have been about 10 years ago. Sadly, she's gone now. But about 10 years ago, we were in her larder. She had this amazing larder that's about the size of a normal bedroom, it was huge. And to the rafters with shelves and cans, and she hoarded food. And I mean, really hoarded it, because they were obviously starving in that time. They're on a tiny island. They're being occupied by the Germans. Anything that they grow gets taken for the Germans. It was just awful. But I went into her larder to clear it out for her, and I found things that had gone out of date in the 60s. There was just such a mentality of we must not waste. And so, I think this kind of thing about not upsetting your elders because if you don't eat their food becomes then this other version of shame. So there's just shame everywhere.
There is.
Don't you want to disappoint this person? Don't disappoint them by not eating it.
Yes.
I made this for you. Do you not like it? Do you not appreciate me? I work really hard, like all those
food is used in so many different ways, isn't it? And I mean, it's a whole topic in itself. And I think, Helen, when you say, does it matter what the intention is? I think, anybody listening could be like, oh God, I do that at the table with my kids, and I wouldn't want anyone to feel the shame. Like, it comes from, we have not questioned it. And that really is what our courses are all about, is just stopping and questioning some of these things we do and understanding where they come from and what damage can be done by that. And, many of us have no idea.
If you're scared of rejection, of saying no, have no idea how to trust people, you're not alone, and you don't have to heal alone either. That's what the Hub is for. It's a membership community designed for survivors just like you. Every month we dive into powerful courses, we hold live calls and connect in a supportive, understanding space so you can break free from the past and build healthy, fulfilling relationships. Maybe it's time to stop surviving and instead start thriving. Visit jointhehub.ac today using the code POD20 to get £20 off your first month's membership. I can't wait to see you there. Take care. Bye. And I can see that 100%. It's always the thing of when you are made aware, what do you do? Do you shift and change, or do you heavily defend your position and carry on? Wow. There was something interesting in Kat's description there about the disappointment, because in that we're saying you are then responsible for how this person feels. So not only is this about not disappointing them, it's about managing their emotions, which gives that omnipotent power of reinforcement if you're especially in these narcissistic systems, which is all about you get to decide how someone treats you by how you manage their feelings. And the shaming around that.
Well, and then, I mean, this is very familiar with, I'm sure, a lot of your audience about the topics you talk about. But I think there's the mixed messages that they can come with this is, you need to eat this, you need to do this for me, all this kind of, and then another day there'll be a criticism about how much you're eating or the size of your body, which, by the way, there isn't always correlation between how much you eat and the size of your body, usually. That's not a thing. But we tend to think it is. But that then comes up, and it's very, very confusing to know. And that is gaslighting, isn't it, really?
Yeah, because you're flipping all the narratives.
Exactly. And it's a game you can't win. And because it's all around, because it's not just in your family, which is hard enough, we all know that. But when you go to the doctors and you literally can't get medical treatment, or you don't fit in the gown for a surgery because you don't, they're not made for bigger bodies. Yeah. You can't fit on the plane, and you can't go to theatre, and you can't, everywhere. When you're fatter, you are excluded from everywhere. And so you tend to think, people tend to assume it's me. I've been told this in my family system. And oh my God, everywhere I go, I'm told it too.
Yes, there's a reinforcing of this narrative constantly.
Everywhere. It's universal. And
because
that's the thing that we want to try and expose, I think, is that this challenging this idea that might not be true is huge. It it does need a health warning. It's people have governed their whole lives by this, if I can just stay in control of this, which, by the way, we can't really. We can in the short term, and some people, there's very small percentages that can. It's often men, actually, I would say, control their weight, made differently.
Right.
Men have made the rules. It's women's bodies being controlled, doesn't work the same way. FYI. The idea that if we can control this, particularly if you've been in a really emotionally abusive family or relationship, this is one thing I can control, then I'll be all right, then I'll be accepted. And there's some truth to that in the world, right? There's entire truth to that. But of course, because it's very, very hard to do that, to stay in control of your body, that's a sort of spoiler alert. We consistently then feel to blame for not having done that, and on it goes.
Yes. And you just gave me a little light bulb moment of one of the things I've noticed in my own life, but also in my work, is that there can be because when you grow up in these systems, you're constantly told you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. Because we're fearful of being imperfect, we can attribute the not good enough to our weight and rejection to our weight. So we almost wear it as a defense mechanism of, well, they don't like me because of my weight, rather than kind of looking at our imperfections, our flaws, maybe what we do that doesn't work in relationships, because we all have red flags and we all have difficult things. But this idea that, and it's almost like, weirdly, society perpetuates that kind of defense mechanism of I'm rejected because I'm fat, not because I do a thing that is not healthy. And
the other way round as well is you think that there's some truth in what that person's telling me and believing them. And you think in narcissistic relationships, you're like, well, you've got a point there. You could disprove a lot of other things, but you're like, you are right about that, but they're not.
No. And I tell you, as someone who's lost loads of weight, there are a few things that have happened that are weirdly weird. And I mean, I expected one of them, but the other one I didn't, because last time I lost any kind of significant weight, I was not on social media, and I also wasn't doing it healthily, because I have struggled with eating disorder in the past. And the first thing that wasn't surprising is how different people treat me, how all of a sudden I've got this kind of pretty privilege in a way that I'm, people are much nicer, much more accommodating, much more willing. I don't know. There's a huge thing
that, where I say about people make assumptions about me because of my weight, that, if I'm in a thinner body, I will not have that. That will be credited with more intelligence. They'll put my physique down to my bike riding rather than I'm doing it wrong at the moment because I'm still fat. I think there's this bigger thing, like diets itself are a gaslighting tool, because, we've been trying to diet for at least, books have been coming out since the 30s, right? Nobody's cracks here, there never seems to be the foolproof thing. The reason swing world is still going is repeat custom. I think it's an estimated 97% of diets don't work. Because
that's a very low rate of success.
You're like dating apps. It's just tricking you into believing you're going to achieve something you're desperate for, and then keeping you hooked in the cycle, right? And making money out of you.
Absolutely. It's always easy to drop it initially. That always happens.
Yes.
It's natural. Our body is designed to withstand that famine. Feast from famine.
Yeah.
So, because there's an invisibility to being fat, and then, losing the weight and becoming visible. And it's a weird thing, because the invisibility isn't about you are literally invisible. It's that you're just this version of a human being, that there's no kind of seeing beyond that by society. It's
the both sides of the same objectivity, like a sexual object coin. because
that it's the sexuality aspect.
Oh,
no, because
right?
it's mine has actually stopped, but I'm post-menopause, and apparently you can tell by looking at me because all the comments have stopped.
What?
Yeah, they started in my teens and they've stopped post-menopause. Yeah,
Isn't that bizarre?
yeah. Didn't know I was
very
wearing a
odd.
T-shirt letting people know, but apparently
but yeah.
Goodness
no
me.
longer useful.
But it's this
That is
array
amazing.
thing, because again, because so much, and it does affect men, and men at the moment, really it's
Yes.
a pressure around being muscly, and that has its own things, but it's around the male gaze. It's about, you need to be a viable product because you need to be bought into by men. And so if you are thin, then that is deemed good because the men will want you. And if you're fat, then that isn't good because then they wouldn't want you. Not thinking about whether or not you actually want any attention from men, whether that's really true.
Right.
But yeah, there's so much value put upon that.
Yes.
And so again, it's that more of that buying of like, well, of course I need to be thin. It's sold as a solution. It's sold as something which will make you happy. And it will feel initially good because you will get thin privilege where people go, oh, don't you look well? Don't you look good? Oh, you look really good now. Yeah, and you can fit into things and you don't have to have a panic attack before a flight to see if you're going to fit on it or anything. But then it's about at what cost, because then what happens when it comes back on? And if it doesn't, what are you doing to yourself? I think like eating disorders are in people of what they would call as under BMI, of actually sort of physically within. I think it's small percent. I think it's like 16%.
6% of people with eating disorders are underweight, in inverted commas.
Right. Yes, because to be classified as anorexic, you have to have lost 15% of your body weight. It doesn't actually mean that you have to be underweight. It means you're being restrictive and
but that is
punishing
called, if you are still fat and you have an eating disorder, anorexia, it's called atypical anorexia.
Brilliant.
So we don't really recognise that. But yeah, it's really prevalent, and it's something that Aubrey Gordon says. She's an amazing fat activist. She's a Maintenance Phase podcast, and it's in the film about her life. She said, when you see someone who's fat and you go, well, haven't you tried? Probably, actually, they've tried a lot. They've probably tried
all the time,
really, really hard. And that's probably what got them there. Because that's the thing with my weight, it fluctuated because I did the diet, then go down and you get up again, and you always put on an extra cushion, go down and up, down and up. I've stopped dieting, and since then my weight has been about the same.
Isn't that interesting? And then also I notice a weird thing as well about the dieting or the weight loss is there's almost shame attached to that because you've lost the weight and so suddenly everyone's shaming fat you, but you're the same person. And then like
the compliments that come that do not exist when the weight comes back or were not there before. It's really, and therapists do this too. Therapists will praise weight loss. They do it because human beings who think that's okay. And that's one
you
of the
just
things.
don't know why someone's lost weight.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be illness.
I've deliberately started just going now because people keep commenting on my body, and I first of all hate it, but second of all, it's so
anything could be going on for you.
You don't know why I'm thinner, you don't know what's going on, like you've just gone, oh my god, you look amazing, and it's like
exactly. Yeah,
exactly. It's supposed to display it. If you think about it in celebrity culture, there's each person, somebody from Coronation Street dropped a load of weight and then they release the DVD and go, look at me now. That's the thing. Fat people are a before picture in our culture. But then somebody like Adele, who's a lot of weight, however she did, whatever reason, and just didn't say anything about it. Good for her. But people are like, but why? Can we talk about it? And it's like, leave a beat. Leave a beat. It does not matter. If someone's body changes, you don't have to talk about it, in
any way at all.
Exactly.
So just a little bit conscious of our time, and I really wanted to ask before we finish, we talked about how we pass messages on intergenerationally and how we do it unknowingly. And I wonder if people are now listening going, oh shit, that's what I've been doing and I didn't realise. How can we talk? So especially if you've got a child who's overweight, how could we talk to that child about bodies, food, if we even say, my position is that we just don't say anything at all, we just change it. But I wonder if there is anywhere we give them autonomy or a voice over it, how we do that without it becoming shame or a focus or an obsession even.
I mean, I'll probably leave Kat to answer this, but I was supposed to just challenge Helen, how you said I would just change it as if it's something that needs to be changed. Like you would do something differently and not talk about it as if it needs to be changed. Because there's still this assumption that if you've got a fat kid, that they are going to be unhealthy, and if the responsible thing is to try and change that.
Sure.
Whereas, but it's not really evidence to be the case. And actually the danger, and actually there's a lot of evidence that Body Happy Org is, as an organisation, goes to schools to talk to children about this, so I recommend that, is the evidence is that it creates much more poor health outcomes because of the stigma and shame when you talk to kids about bodies and food at all. And it introduces restriction and body checking and all that sort of stuff. And actually the health outcomes of fat kids are not really there otherwise.
Right. Well, we got cut off there for a moment, so we've restarted and we are all differently dressed. So if you're watching on YouTube, there is a reason. So let's pick up from where we were. Kat, we were talking about children's bodies, people commenting on people's bodies, and I'm just going to hand it over to you to take it away.
Yeah. So the thing about children's bodies, especially when they do BMI, we've discussed why BMI doesn't work, and it's just sort of put down for kids. Kids grow at different rates. It says at top says, size 2 to 4, loads of children, there's not a standard size. And there'll be a concern, as they say, if a kid is what is seen as fat or what would be deemed overweight. But nobody's getting concerned about the kid who shoots up, who's towering above the rest of the kids.
Yes.
It happens, they all grow at different rates. And if you start to restrict their food, two things happen. One is that you're in danger of, delaying the development because they're not getting enough calories in. But also you're creating this deficit sort of mindset of like things are scary, with food, some things are good, some things are bad. Kids get really confused. My kids, because they got told about good and bad food at school, thought I got sick because I had a Lindor. And it was like, no, chocolate isn't bad, makes you sick. Some people just think it's, so that's dangerous in itself. And it's confusing and shameful. And it's just, let kids be how they be. But, when people talk about health and health of the kids and all this stuff, it's all code again. It's all a dog whistle for, is your kid fat? And if your kid's fat, that's not okay. And as a parent, and especially as a mother, because mums are always seen as responsible for all the food and responsible for children, then you failed. And that pressure can then that lead to that pressure for the mum to feel like you must look acceptable, and they're feeling that, and the cycle continues.
That's interesting. And that cycle's really important, isn't it? Because I think certainly my experience as a therapist and personally is that what seems to happen is we internalize all these messages from our childhood and then pass them on to our children, either very unwittingly or from our own sense of shame or whatever it might be. And I wonder if you're seeing that, Jo, in terms of that kind of cycle. I think of it as a chain. I never think of it as a cycle. It's more like a path that we're just passing it down. Yeah,
that's a good description.
Do you see that?
Totally. And I think, it's a really hard topic because what we see is that chain happening through the females, not the males. And I don't want to get into any kind of mother blaming here because, that none of us are about that, ever. However, mothers model to their children, even unconsciously, all sorts of messages about their bodies. And when you look back historically, we're a similar sort of age. Our parents will have been brought up post-war by people who lived through the war. So there's all sorts of messages going on around rationing and all that sort of stuff anyway, which gets passed to our parents who are then... Do you know what I mean? Like we just, like all our parenting, we model what we've been told, but that's all we really know. We pick up bits, but what's really sewn into us is our own experience. And so we've probably all got mothers, and this is what we hear on our workshops. The people that come, everyone's got a mother story. So it's not about mother blaming, but they've all got a mother story about watching their mum diet, talk shit to their own bodies, even if they weren't doing that to their child, although there's a lot of that as well, because of what Kat just said about the pressure on women. And in Aubrey Gordon's movie, Your Fat Friend, which I highly recommend, it talks about this. The pressure on the mother to be, it's amazing. To do something about this is very prevalent, and it's still there. And it's the mother who gets because the mother blaming is what goes on. The finger pointing goes to the mother. So there's this balance of, I don't want to pass this on to my child. This is what we generally hear. I don't want to pass diet culture on to my child. Most people are there, I would say. And yet they're still doing it themselves in some form. And kids aren't oblivious to that.
No.
And so what we notice is if you want to be the catalyst for change, and each generation has got the opportunity, haven't they, to do it differently. And we all do things slightly differently, and that's why things change. As mothers, particularly, we've got this opportunity to to do it differently, but it has to start with you. And that's what we notice on our courses, that people, when they do the work themselves, it just naturally, something shifts with how they parent.
Okay. So how do we start peeling back our own kind of prejudices that and biases that we've maybe internalized that we're not even aware of? What could we do as a first kind of exercise or
come on our
reflective thing?
course.
I mean, obviously. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to genuinely say, I went on your course, and as somebody who had inhabited a fat body most of their life, to go on that course and then find that I had my own prejudices, because I felt lots of shame about my own body, but never thought that I was extending that out of my own body. And then to recognise that there was a place, and I was, quite surprised to find it, because what it seemed to be for me personally was there was a line of where I would be non-judgmental and then judgmental, and it was a very high bar, but it was still there. And that fear of, oh, thank God I'm not there. I'm not that big. Yes, it was absolutely transformative for me in terms of learning my own self,
That's so good to hear. I think apart from obviously coming on our course, a really easy step is to notice how you talk about your body, how you talk about other people's bodies, your children's bodies, and how you talk about food. So every time you are looking at your body and going, oh, this is crap, I feel so big, or this is not right, you're saying there's something wrong with your body. And genetically, your children will have the same body as you. So if you're saying this body is wrong, or saying to a kid, your body is wrong, and if your body looks like mine later, it's going to be wrong. It's setting it up that this is how we talk about it. And again, like I said before, if you say this food is bad, then kids get worried or scared, or there becomes this hoarding thing. I was thinking of you talking about your grandma in Jersey with all the food. That if things, if you go, chocolate is only for Easter and you can only have a little bit, then chocolate is sacrosanct and kids will be obsessed with it and try and have it. Yeah. Like in our household, like each year, Halloween and Easter stuff just ends up in the side rotting and we bin it. Yes, because they're just not that excited. And now all our kids want is the few things that I've said no to, like alcohol and caffeine. And they're like, I can't wait till I can have that, because it's the only banned thing. Everything else, I just encourage, just make sure you're getting a variety. And like, if you eat only anything, whether it's lettuce, chocolate, bread, that's not good. Just make sure you get a variety.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Because it's that education of everything in moderation, everything, listening to your body and what it wants. Because the thing of, I remember just like going through phases, especially when I was pregnant, really wanting broccoli, broccoli, and having never really been a big fan of it. And now I love it. But at the time, what my body was saying was you need iron, and broccoli is really, really rich in it. And your body tells you what you want. So I think the thing being that if we teach children to listen to their bodies tell them what we want. But the minute that we start crowding and clouding with you can't have and temptation and remember, you know, if a child has any kind of neurodiversity or difference of some kind, something like the ADHD brain, the drive for carbohydrates and sugar is a lot higher because the brain's using so much more energy than a neurotypical brain. And so there's different things and factors that influence what our body wants. And it's teaching them, surely, to do that within kind of a self-regulation way, maybe, I don't know. And it's important what we drink, right? Because if I drink a can of Coke when I'm thirsty, it's actually not going to make me less thirsty. It's just going to, probably because of sugar in it, dehydrate me further. But if I drink water and then have a can of Coke, I can still have the can of Coke. It's just having the water first to quench the thirst. If we do just listen, if we pause and listen to what does my body need, we will get a signal of some description. And then when it comes back saying, I need sugar, not to deny that, just because it's sugar, you know?
You need energy.
Yeah.
It's just this prescriptive thing of like, this is how many calories someone needs, or this, all bodies are different, all people are different. Some days I need a lot of food, some days not so much.
Yeah.
And it depends, food or mood, temperature, what's going on, where I'm in my cycle. I wouldn't expect anyone to eat the same as me because nobody is the same.
No, exactly. And I do think that's another big part of this. I think having, you know, been in that bigger body, one of the comments I would get quite regularly was how little I ate, that I ate such a small amount and it didn't really make sense. And I'd be like, I know. It's really frustrating. Yeah.
If you're bigger, you're clearly just stuffing
I must
your
be
face.
shoving chocolate down my face. I eat more chocolate now than I've ever eaten in my entire life. There's so many different things that go into like polycystic ovaries and just hormone imbalances and
lymphedema, it's just genetics, metabolism. It's just not that simple. And I think we'd like it to be simple because people go calories in, calories out, and it's like, no, if that,
good for you if that's I always say if it was that simple, Oprah Winfrey is always the go-to. If it was that simple, Oprah Winfrey, who has all the goddamn resources in the world, would not struggle with her weight.
Yeah, there was a report commissioned, I think, by NICE. But essentially, it was a report into the determinants of weight gain. And essentially, there were thousands of them, all sorts of things. Yeah, access to things, genetics, weight, family history, so many. It's a huge sort of map. And if I can find it, we can link to it.
That'd be amazing.
The show notes. But yeah, that's how complex it is.
Yes.
You know, and that's how complex all of this is. We could talk for ages about this.
Yeah. I mean, every time we have a conversation, it's different and it's amazing. So I just want to thank you both so much for coming on today and talking about this. And just, I don't know, I think it's such an important topic. It's so important around trauma, around narcissistic family systems, because of course it's used as such a big controlling mechanism and shaming one too. Thank you so much. We are going to put all your links in the show notes. I'm going to highly recommend your courses because they are literally transformative. And is there anything else anybody needs to know about you? Where to find you or anything?
Yes. So we're online at thefatcounsellors.co.uk. We've got all the links are in there. If you go to there, then it's our courses, how to find us online. I'm including my own individual site and also Joe's as well.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well, Kat and Joe, thank you so much for coming on again. And I guess all that remains to be said is take care. Bye.
Bye.